Hi, Trina Ray, and it is day 34 of 365 days of realizations. So here I am. It's a little bit chillier today. I'm back out in the forest. The sun is shining, and I feel filled with the realization. And this is what it is. It's really cool. I have been spending a little bit of time thinking about where I've been and where I am now. And I'm not much of a believer in spending a lot of time in the past, but I do think it's important to see where we've made it to, like where we've come to, and some tiny little things. So I know that in this world of manifestation, lots and lots of people are super excited about the stuff that gets manifested. But it's so interesting because what I'm super excited about is the invisible stuff that gets manifested. And by that, I mean how I feel in every given moment, and this yearning that I would say I had for most of my life and was kind of bouncing around looking for experiences to soothe the yearning or to get rid of the resistance that was amplifying the yearning, would be a way to say it. I don't have that. Like, it's just not there anymore. So that's really cool. So my set point has clearly raised. And I invite you to do the same thing. Like, just look at yourself and do like this sort of exercise where you look back at other versions of yourself and love them and bless them and be like, you rocked it, because whatever they did is what took you to this epic place right this minute. And then I was standing in that epic place and just like realizing I always wanted to live in California, and here I am in California, and I wasn't really specific about where. I mean, I love the ocean, and I'm a little further from the ocean than I would like right this minute, but I live in this really funky, cool town, two towns actually. They're kind of like twin each other. They got a vibrant energy about them. They have lots of funky, cool things. They're both touristy places. And they have a sweet, good vibe. So that's really cool. The weather is like epic. I used to always say British Columbia was the California of Canada. And now I live in California. So here it is. I don't know what the date is exactly. February 3rd. Oh yeah, that's right. It's my dad's birthday. February 3rd. And sure, it got a little chillier, but the sun's already coming out and it's warming up. So we don't seem to really get much of a winter, which is exciting. Lots and lots of sunshine, and that vibes me up and just emulates how I want to feel inside of myself. And I think it's important to acknowledge those kind of things, like to acknowledge that as masterful creators, we get to create the environment that surrounds us to do whatever it takes to bring us back in to the knowing of who we are and into our alignment. So being in a climate that feels really good, and ultimately having this vision of we're working on immigration and we're moving towards the idea of being able to live in both countries freely and easily, is really super exciting. And also, though, the big thing for me was to sit in this place of recognition of the love that I feel for myself, and that I'm not needing that as an outward thing. I don't need it for my partner. And in that, not only do I feel free, he feels free, because he doesn't have to play anything. He doesn't have to be something specific to sort of make me happy or to soothe something in me. And when him and I met, neither of us was really looking, but I was practicing living unconditionally. I was practicing this notion of like, everything that I want to feel comes from inside of me, and nothing outside of me is what creates the feeling in me, unless I allow it to, which is totally within my right, within all of our free will. We can look at the conditions and decide I'm going to feel whatever I feel based on those conditions. When the conditions are interpreted as good to me, I'm going to feel good. And when the conditions are interpreted as less than good, I'm going to feel bad. That's the way a lot of people live, but it's not the way I want to live. As a conscious creator, I feel like what I want to do is I want to live so that I decide how I'm going to feel in any given moment. And then, because it's magical, because of the law of attraction, everything will then line up to support that feeling. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go out of my way to not just pre-pave it, but to create this sort of lifestyle and this sort of feeling in my house, in my space, in my own inner self, in my practices, in the food I eat, in the things that I consume and watch. If I do that at all, the relationships I have, the conversations I have, what I allow to come into my world, so to speak, because it is my world and I'm constantly creating it. So by being conscious about that and saying, just because something's going on out there doesn't mean that it needs to come into here, and being able to incrementally or all at once, just make the decision of how I want that to look. So that's huge. Like, that's really, really huge, because having been a mom for so long, it's so interesting. I think as moms, we're really taught, whether we like it or not, to take our cues from outside of ourselves, because we're taking a lot of cues from our kids. And of course, in parenting, that is a necessary thing. I mean, if your kid's hungry or hurt or whatever those physicality things are that are going on, but so much of it is vibrational. And I wish that I had taken more time to sort of attune to how I wanted my day to go, what I wanted to experience, even as select as like, what is the fine tuning that I want to do and how I'm hoping my kids and our relationship will show up. And so that's part of what I'm practicing now. And I've seen changes, still things to come, still things moving, still giving my daughters the right to find their own way with so many things, which sometimes bumps into my finding my way with so many things. But I know it's a co-creation, and I'm trusting the unfolding of it. I'm not trying to get in it. I'm not trying to mess it up. And I think it's a good practice to sometimes get out ahead of it, or to get out, and see the bigger picture of these things. But just to stay in that place of, what, the thing outside of me is not the thing that makes me happy, but there's certain things that are conducive to activating that happiness within me, especially since I've spent, almost 50 years, but of that maybe not conscious, but 50 years of this like overlaying of vibration on top of me, some that came from my family, some that came from our culture, or call it Maya or the Matrix, that I wasn't necessarily aware of, conscious in, participating in. I didn't get asked. I wasn't asked, do you want to take this on? It just kind of ended up here. So since it took that much time to sort of, for example, build in a view of lack and limitation that is different from how my inner being would see the world, it's reasonable that now I'm going to work my way back to that. And in every potential moment of the highest alignment that I can find, see the infinite potential that is me, see the unlimitedness that is me, see all the cooperative components of the universe spinning around to get me. But then there's the funny part that because we have to do this dance between like the contrast and the catalyst that takes us to that expansion, and then the lining up with the expansion, that's never going to end. We're always going to be in those places where our alignment is different than it was a couple minutes ago, and then it's still different, it's still different. So what I'm saying is, from that state of being conscious, we can then decide right now, what is it that I want for my life? And I don't mean like stuff, I mean like, how do I want to feel, and what kinds of things support that? So I 100%, my toppest goal is I want to know I'm joy. I want to know that I'm a pure being of love and light, that I am energy first and foremost, source is here with me, and that I'm oozing this beautiful, pure, pristine love all around me, that bliss is just like that, and it's accessible to me. And when I think of the word joy, I just think of this like, this like epic sort of love-making connection with myself that just feels juicy and delicious and passionate and opens doors. And it is just that magic that is what I want to experience all the time, over and over and over again. So what kinds of things can I then set up in my life that are going to take me to having that experience? And a lot of it is what I would call mindset, in the sense that when I step into a room and I see something that needs to be done, like say a chore, do I go to the place, oh, I gotta do it? Or do I go to the place of like happiness because I have the honor and the privilege to be in this physical body, creating a space that I love, and then loving the space every second that I'm doing it? That's so different. So that's one of the key things that has shifted for me, is that I live my life with such epic appreciation for every single thing that I find in every single moment, no matter what I'm being invited to. And I get to decide that. And that is so delicious and so exciting, because I'm in control of how I feel, and I am not letting the circumstances choose it or decide it for me. And that's, to me, what it really means to be unconditional. So just by playing this little brief game with myself, I've already been able to come up with a number of things that have shifted when I took the focus away from conditions and made the focus inward, sort of developed what I like to call the inner landscape of myself, so that I can feel. It's not control. I mean, it is control, but it's not. It's like, it's this open flowing, because it is who we are. So what would it be I'm controlling? It's a letting go of the resistance and the letting go of the control, because the circumstances don't mean a thing. They're there, but they don't decide if I'm happy or not. And so back to my partner, because I just want to share that. we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary of getting married, and I think 5 years of being together. So 5 years of being on this little experiment with ourselves to create an unconditional way of being together, unconditional loving. And just to be clear, sure, there's still times that we have these epic conversations, like what does that mean and what does it look like? But as a basic means, I don't have to reference him to make decisions, and he doesn't have to reference me. And part of that is because we're in really good resonance with each other, and we really put some energy into maintaining that resonance. I mean, I go out of my way to just delight in him, to just love him, to just see him as my inner being sees him, to swirl around in that with him, and to just observe him on occasion and just like be in such appreciation that we get to have this cool experience together, that we get to be on this path at the same time, reaching for more, reaching for the fullness of who we are, and how can we best draw that out from each other. And then to review like the sort of vows and promises we made to each other when we decided to enter into an aligned partnership. What did that look like? What did it mean? And how do I keep them constant and forefront in my mind so that I'm always reaching for that higher expansion? And so it's funny how so many things just sort of seem to take care of themselves, and we don't have what I would call issues. We don't. And, you know, the other interesting piece that I came to is that to me, unconditional means that he is my absolute very best friend. And no matter what, he will always be my very best friend. And I will always see him as the absolute best. And then I'm going to let it unfold, meaning that I'm not going to put my alignment aside to keep the relationship. I'm not going to let the conditions decide what I'm going to do with my relationship, but it is a living, breathing, organic engagement. And so I'm going to just trust that we're both attending to our alignment, and from that place, and we get to align better. And I've always said from the get-go that I love him and love this relationship we have because it is the playing out loud of the epic relationship that I have with my inner being. So when something seems like it's not going well with him, then the call is to go back inward and figure out how I can deepen my relationship truly with myself. And if it's something that feels like a trigger, then what do I need to do to empty of it, to surrender of it, so that it's not part of it, because it doesn't belong in my relationship with him or anyone else. It doesn't belong 5 minutes after the event happened that caused it. I want to be free of that and clean of that. So anyway, that was my little rant around having some appreciation for where I've come from. And I think this is going to be an ongoing thing. I invite all of you to take a few moments and just sit and pick a version of you that was maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, and sit within and see how much you've changed and evolved since then, and pick something that you were really intentional about, that you know, like maybe you were intentional about raising your set point of vibration. Maybe you were intentional about meditating and connecting more. Maybe you've been more intentional about just standing in the clarity and recognition that you have an inner being and that you are energy in this body, and you want to flow in that and feel that feeling of alignment more, and see how far you've come with it, and the differences, the tiny little differences, because it's not always millions of dollars and all this stuff that really isn't the thing that makes us happy either, because those things are conditional. It's more of like, what is your state of being feel like, and how quickly do you come back from something, and how little do you ever find yourself sick, and how less reactive you are, maybe not even at all, and how conscious are you about the choices that you make, and just celebrate all of that in you. And I see you making these things a point and putting yourself in the best state that you can to take yourself to the expansion that you're inevitably going to get, but you know it tastes so much better and it's so much more fun when you're conscious in it. So have a great day. I'm going to leave you with that, and drop some comments if it excites you. I would love to get some conversation going about it. Bye.